This Monero Mateo video is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Safely store, send, receive, and trade your Monero on Cake Wallet on Android and iOS.
Recording is on.
All right, we're live. What's going on, everybody? This is Monero Mateo. Welcome back to the channel. We are honored to have Kevin Wad here on the program. Kevin has been integrating more into the Monero community, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about him. And he just made a channel recently on Monero, and I highly recommend you go check that out. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things he talks about there today. And so just to introduce you, Kevin, you are a blockchain developer who has worked on the Etica Protocol since 2018. It's an open source protocol for medical research without intellectual property. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we are very gracious to have you. How are you doing, Kevin?
Man, I'm extremely great. And I would say I'm very, very glad to meet you because what you have been doing for the Monero community is exceptional. And well, I really appreciate, to be here and to talk with you. And again, thank you for the whole community because what you've done is mind blowing, because yeah, this is crazy, what is happening.
Yeah. And you were one of the first listeners, I think, on our channel, which is fantastic. And I remember you commenting on one of our videos saying that you were going to make a channel soon, and you did. And it's awesome. Some of the stuff you talk about with quantum scalability and, we'll talk about that because when people hear about quantum physics, they're like, oh, let me get my dude bro science textbook, right? But yeah, you talk about a lot of interesting stuff. And I'm just so excited that more people are coming out here to talk about this wonderful project, Monero. And I do think it's really important. I believe that it's really important for financial freedom. And so let me just ask you, how'd you get into this stuff? What really enticed you about it?
Well, for me, it's starting, I think it was just, I was studying a lot of projects on the blockchain. And at the beginning, I was into Bitcoin. I used to listen to Mike Kaiser and Stacy on their Kaiser report, and it was about late 2013, beginning of 2014. And when Ethereum started, I was into it, and I also met one of the founders of the DAO, Stefan Joel, and I was into Ethereum, but I noticed that it wasn't for me. And when I found about Monero, I became almost crazy about it, and now I am completely into Monero. I think this is the cryptocurrency of freedom, and we have to make sure that it gets what it deserves.
Absolutely. When you first discover Monero, it's like you're Nicolas Cage finding the national treasure. It's just like, I can't believe people are not paying attention to this. We have to steal the Declaration of Independence and let everybody know, right? Because the fact that it's a $5 billion market cap, and I'm not about the price. Typically on my channel, we talk about the macro economics of this stuff and why it's going to be important with everything that's going on in the world. To see it at $5 billion and to see Bitcoin approaching $1 trillion when Monero is just so obviously a better cryptocurrency than Bitcoin and some of the other top coins that are out there. It's just like people need to figure this stuff out like quickly and understand what's going on here. Because really on our channel, and I think you're probably the same way, we very much care about freedom. We very much care about freedom and the future for humanity, because it looks like we're going into an interesting, sticky situation regarding a lot of this artificial intelligence stuff and how that's going to interlock with blockchain and crypto and central bank digital currencies and everything like that. And so freedom is just so important, which is why we're so about Monero here and why we're all about Monero first and the Freedom Coin Covenant and everything like that. And so what does freedom mean to you? Because I imagine that's one of the big elements as to why you're involved in this stuff.
Yes, for me, freedom means being able, when you make a transaction, to be certain that it doesn't involve liability. It doesn't involve things that you don't have to care about. If you move money and then 2 months later or 3 months later, you have the police knocking at your door saying you have done this, you are in relation with this, or at the end of the day, when you make a transaction, you don't want to have additional potential damage, and this is due to fungibility. And the idea to have a currency that is not fungible, I mean, if it happens, it will be the first time in human history. I don't think there is an example in human history of a currency that's not fungible, and that works at scale. Maybe it can work in a small village where everybody knows each other, but at scale, you need fungibility. This is a no-brainer. And for me, we have to do the necessary to give the world fungibility. I mean, it has to be done. And what I really like about the Monero community is that at this current moment, I'm really talking about this current moment, is like, I think almost all the people into Monero are like very about freedom. They really care about freedom. And I think that what will happen is that as the price of Monero will start to skyrocket and increase, you will have more and more people that will come in the community, but they will not be about freedom. So right now, like, it's like every time you talk to someone that is into Monero, first of all, it looks like this person is extremely intelligent, and they understand that a currency without fungibility doesn't work, and they are always about freedom. And this is why also there is so much in this community, and to be able to be in this community, this is such a positive thing.
Yeah, when you're in the Monero community, you're part of the cool club. I mean, you got to have, pretty decent intelligence, on the ball awareness as to what's going on in the world, what's going on in crypto. Now, I am not a tech guy, and I've said that since the beginning. I am not a cryptographer. And so when I look at Monero and I see the attractiveness of it, it's not because of, a lot of the intricate details with the math and everything like that. Peterson commitments, which I've looked into, it's really smart stuff. But for me, it's about again, fungibility. Like you say, every Monero equals every other Monero, and the freedom that it could provide for people to opt out of an increasingly technocratic, panopticonical, tyrannical system. And so that's really, really important to me. So in regards to fungibility, that's an interesting conversation. Why does that matter for freedom? Why is fungibility important to you?
Well, if you don't for fungibility, think about the system that will operate. It means, because there is a thing that I like in philosophy is the principle of a wall. It means that when you build a system, you have to do it as if you don't know your place in the system you're going to build. Like, if you build a system and you don't know who is going to control it, are you really going to let a system where there is a central authority that can survey what is going on the blockchain? And because what will happen is that if Bitcoin becomes the main system, I think there are just two possibilities. The first possibility is that we leave layer 1 and everything happens on layer 2, layer 3, and all of this. And then what will happen is that we will just reproduce the current system on top of Bitcoin. So we will have the same consequences. It will just be a matter of time. And at the end of the day, we will have exactly the same system with exactly the same things. And then you will need another Satoshi Nakamoto that will invent a Bitcoin 2.0 to reproduce, the revolution. And the second possibility, I think, is that, so the first possibility was leaving layer 1. The second possibility is that we stay on layer 1, but then you have the states and all of these institutions that are going to control the layer 1 indirectly, meaning that they are going to impose taxes, they are going to survey the blockchain, and they are going to do everything to really make it irrelevant. So I think that fungibility at the core level will definitely be a game changer and bring so much more than just the current proposal of Bitcoin.
100%, and I totally agree with you. And Bitcoin is not private on the base layer, which is why it's not fungible. Like, people look at Monero, they're like, oh, I'll use a private cryptocurrency when I need it. And it's like, no, if it's not private on the base level, it's not an actual cryptocurrency in the fullest sense of the term, because in order for something to be a legitimate currency, and in order for all of the units of that currency to equal each other, it has to be by default private. And I don't know if you saw this tweet from Adam Back, big Bitcoin guy. He's behind Blockstream, but he was like, yeah, the Bitcoin that nobody knows that you own, that's the most valuable stuff right there. And it's just like, Wait, Adam, do you mind going back and rewinding what you just said there? You said that some Bitcoins are more valuable than others based on who knows that you have it. It sounds like a fungibility problem, my friend. But I imagine he owns some bags of Monero. He talks indirectly about it, but that's really important. Like privacy is really important for fungibility and therefore freedom, right?
Yeah. Let me add something about this.
Yeah.
It's about honesty, you know, honesty. Because another feature I think there is in the Monero community is honesty. I think the current community is extremely honest people. You know, I skydive when I have time. I do skydive, and in this community, you know, it's a small community, but you have to trust each other, you know, because if you don't, well, you're putting your life into the hands of other people sometimes. So you have to trust each other. And I think like in the cryptocurrency industry, Monero is the only community where I could trust people, you know, this way. And it's about honesty with other people and honesty with yourself, because a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, they know that Bitcoin fungibility is a huge issue, and they know that Monero solves this issue, right?
100%.
But it's like they ignore it, you know, like, like this is crazy, you know. And I think it's completely about honesty, you know. It's like they stop to be honest with themselves, and they're like, well, we will figure out later. We will an alien is going to bring a solution in the future, and it's like they stop to be honest with themselves. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to pay it, because Monero will do the necessary so that it goes where it has to go, you know. And at the end of the day, if you stop being honest with yourself and you ignore the fact that fungibility is necessary at the core level, even Satoshi Nakamoto and Alfine, right after starting using Bitcoin, the first thing they have talked about is anonymity and its privacy and enters fungibility. And Adam Back, there are a lot of videos on him on the internet where he is talking about this huge problem of fungibility on Bitcoin. So he knows it exactly, but it's like Monero doesn't exist. And he prefers to create Blockstream and to have a Lightning Network, layer 2, all of this. At the end of the day, I think they will do everything they can, but until the last day necessary, Monero will not exist for them.
100%. Yeah. And I think Adam Back was doing a presentation many years ago where he indirectly mentioned Monero, I think. And he had said there is some project out there which allows for transactions to be private by default, but society is just not ready for that. And it's just like, why? why are we not ready for that, Adam? I don't understand. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning when you have people who have already bought into the game so much, you know, because you've got a lot of hardcore libertarians out there who got into Bitcoin early, and they've been promoting Bitcoin ever since. And if they were to go back and then say, hey, this cryptocurrency that I told you guys about, this awesome crypto that I told everyone to get into, not as private as I thought it was. I think I made a mistake. You should go to Monero, right? Like, they're not doing that at the rate that you would like them to.
Yeah. But isn't his name Adam Back?
His name? Yeah, Adam Back. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's his name. So he's going to be back. You know, he's going to go back to Monero.
Back to the Future with Adam Back driving the Monero mobile, right? That's yeah. So freedom is important, fungibility is important, and this is interesting. I was looking at your Etica protocol. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that? There is a little bit of a freedom element to that, given that there is no intellectual property involved, which is a big problem in the medical community. This is interesting. So you want to just branch over that a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what I believe is that at the end of the day, the most important thing for a human being is health, you know. And, you know, Bitcoin is about what you have, you know, and Monero is about what you have, all of this, but Etica is about what you are, you know, it's the health. And I think that with the COVID and everything that is happening, it is more than obvious now that we need a protocol for open source medical research. So I've started to work on this back on 2018, and so it was before the COVID and all this. And basically, what it is, it's a protocol for open source medical research without intellectual property. And what it will enable is to create medicines and to find cure for diseases without intellectual property and in an open source way. And this is a huge game changer for the way the current industry works. And I believe that this is going to be more than necessary, and it can be very good, you know.
Very cool. And you've been working on this since 2018. It's quite a
Yeah.
while. Where are you in its development? Are you looking to launch soon?
Well, actually, the code and all of this is already ready. At the beginning, it was just a smart contract that I deployed on the Ethereum blockchain, so anybody can check it and interact with it. And I published a white paper in late 2019, and I also sent an email to the original mailing list of Satoshi Nakamoto in late 2019. And now there is an operational smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain since 2019. But it's like a test smart contract, because what we're planning is to relaunch the whole protocol into its own blockchain, and it will be completely decentralized. And at the end of the day, there is no, like, I will not have any privilege in this protocol. Like, I will be just one person among the others when we will go into launch it, and anybody will be able to mine it and to participate into the protocol. But I think it can really bring something new and much more to the blockchain than DeFi and all of this. I think that decentralized science can be much more valuable for people in the ecosystem. So, do you want me to explain rapidly how it works and how I'm trying to tackle this problem of intellectual property in the medical system?
Yeah, sure. I think people would be interested in that because that is something which I think is in pretty high demand right now in society.
All right. So, the way it works is that it creates a kind of competition for each disease that you can add to a protocol. So basically, it works with periods of 7 days. And for each period of 7 days, there is what we call a curation reward that rewards the voters on the protocol. And there is an editor reward that rewards the researchers on the protocol. And basically, the goal of the researchers is to submit proposals on the protocol. And only the protocol operates in such a way that only about 70% of the proposals are going to be accepted. So the more the time advances, the more the competition increases, and the more you have to produce quality proposals in order to be accepted. And this way, it promotes open source medical research. And the researchers, when they submit proposals, it's like they have to put a collateral for the proposal. It's a stacking system. So basically, there is a currency. It has its own currency. It is its own economy. So it's not about raising funds and then funding researches within the current system, because I don't think this is going to work. But it is going to really use open source system. So in first place, there is competition, but then people have to share their work. So it's a right mix of competition and sharing the results throughout the process of the research. And this is really, really different from the current system. There are some facts that are, again, mind-blowing. Well, let me just ask you a question. And on the current system, you know, the researchers, when they try to make open source research, they have to invest to make their researches, and then they have the result, right? So you would expect for them to be paid, right? So how do you think the current system works? How much do you think they are paid if they make open source research and then they publish their researches?
Well, I do know that there is a huge issue with conflicts of interest because a lot of the science is funded by governments, right? There is no free
And
market
there is
scientific
also this
community.
problem. There is also this problem.
Yeah, yeah.
But just
So
for the aspect, the researchers, they invest to make the researches, and then they publish the results. Well, within the current system, not only they are not paid when they publish, but they have to pay, you know, and they have to pay huge amounts, you know, like they pay the average price when they publish is 3,500 for one article. So this is crazy. So they are like centralized journals, what we call journals, and the researchers, they want to publish in these centralized journals that made them pay to publish. This is a crazy system.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, this is a crazy system, And what I want to create is an open source way to make medical research. And not only the researchers, they will not have to pay, but they will be paid, by a neutral protocol on the blockchain. And I mean, there is so much to do with a protocol that will be open source for medical research.
No, that's such a huge thing. There is going to be a huge demand for that, especially as the government runs out of money, right? How else are we going to fund science? But we do find that there is a huge loss of faith in the scientific community because, first off, a lot of the tests and a lot of the experiments that they do aren't reproduced, and a lot of the results that they get aren't reproduced. And so there's a reproducibility crisis, if I understand, in science, because it's almost turned into a kind of welfare scheme, right? Where you just pay a bunch of people who have gone through like 8 years of government theology indoctrination in order to get their degree. And now in order to make money, they've got to, produce a lot of these scientific experiments and results, many of which are never done again. And a lot of these experiments, like nobody even knows what the utility of these experiments are. Like, it's like, can rats float in zero gravity? It's just like, oh man, what is going on here? What do we need to know this for? And so I think that this is a great way to concretize good scientific quality information that the public needs. And it's a way that the public could fund and provide assistance to scientists who are actually doing real work. Does that sound about right?
Yes, exactly. Because I don't think, lots of people think that when they hear that some institutions, they spend billions to create one medicine. Well, in general, there are just small teams of 10 to 15 people that actually work. A lot of the budget is going in the commercial process and all additional costs that they have, but the core of the research, a very small amount goes into this. And what you are talking about, the reproducibility of the research, is that since it's a competition for intellectual property, it means that maybe you have 3 teams in 3 different companies that are working in competition, so they never share their results. And basically, they do the same experiments, they reproduce the same experiments, and they never share the results. And it is the first team that arrives to the intellectual property in the results that then is going to try to refund all its costs, But if there was a system where they could share the results throughout the process and be rewarded by a neutral protocol at the same moment, so it removes the need for intellectual property, and at the same time, it improves the quality of the research and it makes it faster because they share the results throughout the process and not just for intellectual property. So it's a completely new system of thinking about it. I don't know if it is going to replace the current system, maybe not, but maybe it will work alongside the current system, and it will also be a competition for the current system and force them sometimes to work and to tackle certain diseases, because right now they only go for the diseases where there are the most of the profits. And for instance, the people who have a disease called diabetes. So
you said diabetes?
Yeah, excuse me, diabetes.
Okay,
yes.
sure.
So the industry, they didn't want to tackle this issue. So there was an open source project that was launched, and they created their own solution. And then the industry started to react and has now tackled this issue and given them something that they wanted. And I mean, I truly think that if people realize what we can do with open source medical research, this will be a potential new revolution as well, And I truly want to do the necessary to see such a protocol happen, And again, I would not have any privilege in this protocol. We were going to relaunch it completely, from scratch. And the Etica token, we can mine it, so people will be able to mine it right from the beginning. Actually, there is a process, to organize the distribution of the first tokens. Like we have planned a period of 10 years where people will be able to mine it, and as well as earn tokens by participating in the protocol. And then after 10 years, we will reach the maximum level of Etica that people can mine, and there will be an inflation of about 2.5% per year. And this is this inflation that will fund the curation reward and editor reward system, and then make this protocol, I hope, possible.
Very cool. And I could go on about this. I love science. I could go on about this for hours, right? I mean, because people have lost so much faith in science and given big pharma manipulating science in order to meet their profit motives. That's not great either. And we're seeing that a lot today with the current situation. So that's great. And given your love of science, I think that backs a lot of what you talk about in Monero. And
Yes.
I'll put the link below for the Etica Protocol for if people want to check that out. I think that's some really interesting stuff that you're doing there. And if you want to send me some stuff to put there too, that'd be great. What's that?
Yeah, if people want, they can go on eticaprotocol.org and they will see the white paper, because with my words, sometimes it's hard to explain it, but the white paper really, it explains everything about the protocol. It's about 9 pages, but everything is explained in the white paper much better than I can explain and with greater details. But yes, that's it. And again, we're going to try to launch it in the coming month, completely open source, no pre-mine, nothing on this. It's really about decentralized science, and hopefully this will be a revolution for the medical system.
That would be awesome, man. Praying for your success. That's awesome. So let's hopscotch back to Monero. I think that was some really interesting stuff. And you were talking about science. You're an interested science aficionado, I think. Are you a scientist? Is that your background? I mean, I know that you're a blockchain developer, which to me is like science, but is that part of your background, science?
No, I mean, in high school, I got a degree in science, but it's not my specialty.
Okay. But you do talk about on your channel DNA storage and quantum scalability for Monero, which just is pretty mind-blowing stuff. And so I want to dig into that a little bit, because you had made a video about DNA storage, and one of the problems with Monero, as far as I'm concerned, is the limitations that we have on CPU and bandwidth. It's not that it's not scalable on the protocol, because we have dynamic block size and tail emission and things like this, which are great. We talked about that with Arctic Mon if people want to go check out that interview. But it looks like one of our main limitations is just the hardware that we have. And you dug into some innovations going on with DNA storage. So what implications, like what is DNA storage? First off, what are some cool things going on with that?
Well, basically DNA storage is that now in the future, you will have the possibility to store very large amount of data in tiny spaces. So basically, this is the main thing to remember. And how it works is that you have 3 different kind of technologies, and that are actually right now they are in development, but in the pace of the development is mind-blowing and very huge. So the first thing is that you have the technology that enables to read the DNA. So this is the DNA sequencing, and there is already a lot of research in this. And then you have the technology that enables to write the DNA. So this is what we call DNA. Excuse me. So, yes, so DNA synthesis. Excuse me for this.
DNA synthesis.
Yes.
Okay.
Because English is not my first language, so.
No, totally. We got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, now you have Microsoft, like in 2019, they made a breakthrough, because up until now, when you wanted to make the link between the DNA technology and the computers, you had to have laboratory technicians that make some manipulations, But in 2019, Microsoft, they created a system that make it completely automated. So it's like a new kind of generation of computers where you will have the link between the computer, the hardware of the computer, and in the backup, a DNA system that can store very large amount of data in tiny spaces. So for blockchain, what it implies is that you have the possibility to store very large amount of data for every node, because right now, when people say that there is a problem of scalability, is that potentially we have the technical hardware to store very large amount of data, but it requires a lot of space. But in blockchain, we need decentralization, and then we need something that can be done by average nodes. So this is why we want something in tiny spaces. And with DNA, this is exactly what is necessary. This is on demand for Monero.
Right. Now, Kevin, you're going to
crazy.
freak people out, man. You're going to have people think, oh, Kevin wants to inject Monero into my DNA. That's not cool.
No,
Right?
no,
So
no.
let's clarify that concern real quick,
Yeah.
because Microsoft, they do some sketchy things, right? I mean, they've released patents to mine people's delta waves when they're sleeping and to mine their heartbeats and to pay people in cryptocurrency for their biological data. So when people hear Microsoft DNA storage, that doesn't excite them too much. So let's flesh this out. What does this mean? Could this be used in a way that's actually private, which is the hope of Monero?
Because I mean, there is absolutely no threat. Like they want to inject DNA in the. It's like really for computers.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know about the other actions of Microsoft, but for this part, it's just really about making a new kind of generation of computers. And then for the scalability of Monero, I think it will be extremely useful, because we will be able to store extremely large amount of data in tiny spaces. So with this is crazy. And also, my last video, I published about the bandwidth revolution, with quantum technology. So the quantum internet is coming, and with this, it will also be a revolution for the bandwidth. So the combination of DNA data storage plus the quantum internet for the Monero scalability is more than enough, and this is I think the coming years are going to be extremely good for Monero.
That's great. But on the DNA storage I think I saw a picture in the slideshow that you were talking about with a fossil, which would be like a USB chip would be integrated into like a dinosaur fossil or something like that, which would already have DNA in there. And then you could plug that into your computer. Is that kind of how it would work? Like it wouldn't be your DNA per se. It would be the DNA of something that they extracted into like a fossil or something like that. Is that right?
Okay, so it means that for the fossil, it means that the DNA storage, it can last very long, like it can last for it's extremely durable. So it's a technology, the DNA, that can store information for 100,000 years or 700,000 years. So this is it. And so they were able to take the information that was stored in the DNA and then transform it into digital information. So you see, so they took what was into a form of DNA, and they succeeded in transforming this into digital information. That's it.
Very cool. So that takes cold storage to the next level.
Yeah.
Not just pass it on to your children. We're going to pass it on to the next paleontological species down the line. So that's interesting. And then the quantum scalability, because scalability, I think I was talking to Arctic Mind. He had mentioned that he got into Monero because of its scalability. Actually, it wasn't even the privacy, it was the scalability. Because one of the issues with different cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, even and some of these others, is that it has a limited amount of coins that could be mined. And when we hit that limit, or you approach that limit, the block rewards for the miners get so small that you have to rely on transaction fees in order for the blockchain to function, in order to incentivize the miners to continue to mine it. And so Monero doesn't really have that problem because you have tail emission, you have a continuous reward for miners to continue to mine the blockchain. So Monero has a better scalability outcome, according to Arctic Mind, because people may just stop mining the Bitcoin and other blockchains because they're not receiving enough incentive to do that. And it's speculation as to now whether or not transaction fees could incentivize the miners enough. It's just sort of like a speculative hand waving away of that issue. Monero has preempted that issue with the tail emission. So in regards to DNA storage, in regards to quantum scalability, how do these play into making Monero better than the competition?
Well, the tail emission.
Yeah. So
because there is no link between tail emission and you mean in general? My vision about the tail emission.
Yeah. So how does Monero scalability with quantum scalability make it better?
Yeah, because yes, when people talk about Monero and Bitcoin, a lot of time we don't underline enough the fact that there is tail emission in Monero, because a lot of projects, I mean, almost all the cryptocurrencies, they have followed Bitcoin in the idea of limitation of the supply. So they don't have tail emission. They are preferred to follow Bitcoin for limited supply. But we don't know what happens when we come close to the end of the emission, So, I mean, there is a lot of contradictions in what they say, because they say at the same time that everything is going to be on layer 2, and on the same time that there will be transaction fees that will fund the network. But if there are transaction fees and everyone is on layer 2, then who's going to pay transaction fees on layer 1?
Right. Good point.
Yeah,
right.
But yes, I mean, Monero really is like the perfect edge for Bitcoin, because it's like not only is about fungibility and privacy, but on top of that you have tail emission. I mean,
right, and Monero doesn't really even need a layer 2. I mean, it's already instantaneous. Like, you send some Monero to somebody, they get the indication that they've received it instantaneously. Now it's going to be zero confirmation, and maybe some people are more comfortable getting that first confirmation, which may take a few minutes, but ultimately it's instantaneous. But like you're saying here with DNA storage, quantum scalability, we won't even need to worry about a layer 2. It's going to be fine on its own layer 1 protocol.
Yes, and here a thought I had like a couple days ago, and I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to afraid Bitcoin maximalists. All right, if there are Bitcoin maximalists listening,
oh, we totally do. We totally do. Dump that crap. Get into Monero right now.
But if there are one single Bitcoin maximalist, I mean, don't listen to what I'm going to say, because you're going to be so frightened. This is crazy. But I mean, a possibility is that Monero becomes the chain for large transactions and private transactions, and Bitcoin becomes the chain for microtransactions and transactions that don't really matter, because there is also a need for microtransactions, because for small payments that don't have any real value and all of this, maybe you need a chain for like Bitcoin that will do the work. But for large transactions and medium transactions, I truly believe that the scalability of Monero will be more than enough to have everything on layer 1. So you can have a blockchain that handles everything on layer 1 for medium and large scale transactions, large volume transactions, meaning that you can make medium payments and large payments into Monero on layer 1. And when you want to do stuff like paying on the internet for something like is much less than a cent, or small payments, all of these transactions that go faster than less than a second, all of this, you can use Bitcoin, Lightning Network, and all of this, So that's a possibility. And I think that would be the best possibility, because you will have a layer 1 a transactional blockchain with fungibility, privacy, and all of this in the layer 1. And then Bitcoin becomes kind of a layer 2, or I mean, it's not a layer 2, but it changes the hierarchy. That's a word. I don't know.
Yeah, it changes the hierarchy. So
the hierarchy,
instead of Bitcoin being used for large payments, it would be used for small payments, and that would be on the Lightning Network, presumably. Now, my question then would be, why not just use Litecoin? Why go through the trouble of getting onboarded to the Lightning Network? Because that's got, that takes an extra transaction and some other derivative things. But so why would you say that Monero can't be used for micro transactions? It's just not as like what would be the reason for that? Just not as efficient?
Because we don't have because the fact we don't have a layer 2, it has some inconvenience. Because I mean, if we don't have layer 2, it means we don't have a kind of Lightning Network. So for transactions, like, with Lightning Network, what you can do is, like, you can make some payments that are extremely fast, but because it's not on the main chain. But since in Monero we will have everything on layer 1, it means that just for the block time and all of this, it will take at least 3 minutes and something like this. So that's the reason why you cannot have this kind of very fast payments like you see in some certain games and all of this on the Lightning Network. But again, I think that the design of a Bitcoin Lightning Network and Bitcoin is very good for micropayments, But for large-scale transactions and medium transactions with high volume, I truly think that Monero is really better done. And also, it's something that we have covered in one of my videos, is that with Monero, there is no link between the liquidity of the network and the market cap. But with Bitcoin Lightning Network, there is a link between the liquidity you can have within the network and the market cap. So if you want to increase the liquidity and the total amount of transactional volume possible on the network, you need to increase the market cap of Bitcoin. And that's a huge problem, because it's I don't have the figures in front of me, but in the video, I show that if you want to make like 100 times the transactional volume of PayPal, you would need a market cap of Bitcoin that is crazy, like more than 100 billion or even more. I don't, maybe 1,000 billion, I don't know, but it was like crazy numbers.
Yeah, Bitcoin's got a lot of issues. The Lightning Network I'm pretty skeptical about because it's going to take a long time to onboard people to the Lightning Network, given the amount of transactions per second that Bitcoin is limited to. Because you can only have like 5 to 6 transactions per second on the base Bitcoin blockchain, and to upload, a billion people, just a billion people, not the 6 billion that we have, but just a billion onto the Lightning Network, assuming decentralization, they're not being onboarded to like a Chivo wallet, centralized nightmare that they have in El Salvador. It's going to take like 25 years at least. If you're focusing, I think I calculated 25% of all the Bitcoin payments happening per day on just onboarding people to the Lightning Network. So that's really problematic to me. In regards to using micropayments, maybe you could use something like Xano or Pirate Chain or just another private digital currency, which may not have as much traffic as Monero does. Maybe you could use that for micropayments, which is why I like to talk about the Freedom Coin Covenant. I like to talk about different coins in the sector. Some people in Monero aren't too excited about that, but I think that there are some other coins doing great things out there that could be used for different use cases. And I think maybe micropayments would be more in the camp of like Xano. There's some interesting things going on with Xano. We'll talk about that in another video, but it's really fast. Like I've looked at it, it's pretty fast. Their wallets have aliases. So, my alias is @Mateo. And so it's kind of a cool thing that they've got going on there. It could be good for micropayments. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think that Monero is certainly going to be better for mid and big transactions than Bitcoin. Monero, you have like a lockup thing to a certain degree where your Monero is locked for a few minutes before you can use it. And maybe in regards to micropayments, if you're looking to, shuffle around a lot of cash in a liquid way, maybe not going to be the best, but for, medium to large payments, it's pretty optimal, especially because it's private and fungible, right? So that's really good. That's really good. So another thing that you talk about, Kevin, if we can move on to this conversation, which a lot of people are looking forward to, because this is what you came on Monero Talk to talk about, which was Monero's liquidity. And the speculation that there is a bit of price manipulation that could be happening with Monero that keeps the price down. And on Monero Talk, Chris Guy was out there. Chris Guy loves Monero, which is great. Chris Guy, we love you. He was talking about how one of the main ways to control Monero was to suppress the price and to sort of have a lot of the Bitcoin bros and the gain seekers, what I call the crypto coomers, be turned off by the lack of gains that they see in Monero. And so Monero just kind of gets suppressed. It moves down in the rankings as far as you're able to suppress it. And so that seemed rather wise to me, the way he said that, because you can't stop it. You can't just shut it off. But if you suppress the price enough and make it unattractive to people who are just in the game for gains, which seems to be a lot of people, unfortunately, in the crypto community, well, that could be pretty bad for its adoption. So let's talk about this Binance price manipulation topic here. So what is going on with that?
Well, you know, for me, my personal vision now is that I start to envision a world that is post Binance. You know, I think that Binance it's an exchange that in the coming years, you know, is going to lose its dominance on the market, and this is going to be extremely good for Monero. But in the current moment, I think we are still under the actions of Binance, so we have to talk about it. And I think that, well, what we had is the withdrawal problem. You know, for more than a week, it was impossible to retrieve Monero from Binance. Then the mining pools, they stopped also withdrawals exactly at the moment of the crisis. Then we have seen on the chart XML Airbnb that there was a huge volume exactly on the moment of the crisis. They bought Monero with Binance Coin. Then we have seen also that there is a huge discrepancy in between the daily volume on Binance and the order book for what we would expect, you know, if they had the same ratio as Kraken. And now there are people that are saying that they have huge problems also to retrieve Monero from other exchanges like OKX. There was a user that wasn't able to retrieve for more than 5 months, and people also from certain mining pools. So I think what happened is that Binance took some liquidity from these exchanges and mining pools, and now we are going to start, you know, problems with them. And also sometimes, time to time, there are people saying that their withdrawals from Binance take some time. But what I believe at the end of the day is that there is no question now about the actions of Binance, and at one moment they're going to face the consequences of their actions, and Monero is going to be free from them. This is my belief. And now I think, yes, it has huge consequences on the price because there is a huge price suppression, and this is the last action I think the governments can take against Monero. And this is exactly what we are seeing right now. You know, the price of Monero is like even less than half of its previous all-time high, when all the other cryptos, they are multiples of their previous all-time high. Although Monero is the fundamentals of Monero are skyrocketing, you know, the transactions, the volume of transactions. Your last video about it, I have to watch it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've noticed the transaction volume booming, and it's boomed ever since 2016, but ever since the run up in 2017, like, it seems the price hasn't really done much. And so this wards off a lot of people, but at the same time, like, real world use case for Monero continues to boom. Black markets are only allowing for Monero to be used in transactions. And so you'd expect more people to be buying this stuff. And yes, while Monero is probably more likely used as a real world currency than many other cryptos out there, which are ranked above it, it's odd that if you have that trend, you don't have people buying this stuff just to hold it and get exposure to it, which means that the price would have to go up. And so it's a weird thing that's happening. So
and also,
yeah, sure.
Excuse, you have something to say?
No, I was just about to ask you. So Binance, you think is being used by authorities to suppress the price of Monero because that's the real crypto they're concerned about?
Honestly, I don't know who is behind the scenes. You know, I think that Binance has some interest to sell paper Monero, and this is what they are probably doing, and that maybe some institutions, governments, are shorting Monero, naked shorting Monero, because the ratio of naked short on Monero is extremely high. This is crazy, and these institutions, they are not afraid to lose money, but what they want is Monero down. So they're not afraid, yes, to short the price extremely severely. There are some users that say that, for instance, the rate to borrow Monero on certain exchanges, it's like 30%. So people are willing to pay 30%, just to borrow Monero and short the price. So this is crazy.
Really?
Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy, completely crazy. And also something I wanted to add is a new theory possible. There is a woman, I think her name is Carol Alexander. She talked about the Monero, the Binance issue. Yes, her name is Carol Alexander. So basically, she made an article on her website, and she talks about the dominance of Binance on the market and the fact that Binance is a main exchange when it comes to Bitcoin price transmission. So what it means that she compared
Bitcoin price suppression?
No, Bitcoin price transmission. So
Transmission.
basically,
Okay.
yeah, transmission. So basically, that it's Binance that is leading the price of Bitcoin over other exchanges. So what she did is she made a comparison between Binance and the three main other exchanges that are Coinbase, Kraken, and Bitstamp. And she says that Binance leads the price of Bitcoin 70%. So 70% of the price of Bitcoin is led by the Binance exchange, and only 30% by Coinbase, Kraken, and Bitstamp. So Binance really controls the price of Bitcoin in a huge way. That's why she published on. If you want, I will send you the link.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Binance really controls the price of Bitcoin. And if we remember what happened during the crisis of Monero, is that the very moment Monero has reached its previous all-time high, this is when the price of Bitcoin dropped. So is this just a coincidence? I don't know. Really, I don't know. But the moment Monero was about to skyrocket because it has reached its previous all-time high, this is when the price of Bitcoin has dropped severely.
Yeah.
So
Well, so one question that I do have is Coinbase does not have Monero listed notoriously on their exchange, but if you go on Coinbase, you can actually find a Monero chart and they show you Monero financial information and things like this, but they say it's not listed on our exchange. Now, we could speculate as to why that's the case. Arctic Mind seems to think they're already walking on thin ice with the regulators, and so therefore don't want to plunge into the sea by listing Monero, which is, I guess, a sensitive topic to regulators because of its capacity to conceal identity and to conceal the ownership of assets. And there is seemingly something in the new crypto digital asset security bill, which is antagonistic to what they call anonymity enhancing services like Monero or other cryptocurrencies. But so you're saying that the price of Monero is influenced by Coinbase too, and Coinbase gets their price from Binance. Coinbase does not have supply and demand mechanics, which help facilitate the true price discovery of Monero. They get that from Binance, from where there isn't true price discovery because of their manipulation. Do I have that right?
Excuse me, because I think I wasn't clear, because I was talking about the price discovery, the transmission price of Bitcoin. So Monero,
Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah, excuse me. So Binance, they are the main exchange that leads the price of Bitcoin. So the moves of the price of Bitcoin, she says that 70% it comes from Binance, and then other exchanges follow what happens on Binance. So they basically control the direction of the Bitcoin price 70%. And what I was saying is that since they control the price of Bitcoin, and we have seen that the moment that we have reached the all-time high of Monero, then the Bitcoin price has dropped severely, and all the market has dropped. So maybe they saw that Monero was going to rise extremely high, but they know that there was a liquidity problem of Monero. So they tried to potentially drop the price of Bitcoin so that everything drops. And since we know that they control 70% of the price move of Bitcoin, so they lead the price of Bitcoin in excuse me, in a huge way. So then maybe, this is a theory I had a few days ago. So maybe this is the reason why the price of Bitcoin and the the world market has dropped exactly at the moment when Monero has reached its all-time high.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. I would need to look into that a little bit more, because then the speculation is that they dumped the price of Bitcoin because they're worried about Monero.
Yeah, that would be a possibility. I don't know. Again, I don't know, but yeah, that would be a possibility. I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting. I would probably err on the side that wasn't the case, because you have so much money in Bitcoin, and you have Bitcoin as a market leader, and you have a lot of people setting up algorithms for other cryptos for when Bitcoin, breaches certain critical thresholds on the downside, then they sell the other cryptos just because that's how the market unfortunately now works. I I would need to look into that. That's an interesting theory, but you do offer some other ancillary evidence that Binance does manipulate the price of Monero.
Yeah. That's just no, like an additional theory, but this is definitely not the most serious one. But yeah, I mean, because it's the coincidence is strange, that the market drops exactly at the moment when Monero reached its all-time high, and also maybe they didn't do it on purpose. Maybe they just wanted to um, have a small effect, but then you have a domino effect, and maybe such a drop wasn't intended. I don't know again, but yeah, there's just this fact.
Well, I do know recently, my buddy's super into technical analysis. Jesse, shout out to you. But Bitcoin has been on the firing line of 50,000, and Monero was breaching that 315 technical level. And from what he told me, and from what I understood from the charts he was showing me, there is no resistance from 315 up to 500, assuming that Bitcoin passed 50,000 and took the entire crypto market with it. It did not pass that threshold, or at least stay past that threshold. And so Monero dropped down to something like 220, 230, something like that. So it does seem that Monero follows Bitcoin, unfortunately. That's just how the crypto market functions. That's just how it works. But I think you make some other interesting points. And so that is interesting, because we do know that in gold and silver markets, there's a lot of naked shorting. And I'd be interested to see what those stats are. Like, where'd you get those stats for the naked shorting for Monero? Is that on FTX?
No, it comes from a website that is called Data Mesh.
Okay.
And basically, it's a developer that made this website. So I contacted him as well, and he told me that all its information comes from the exchange Bitfinex, and he didn't find any API for Binance, so they don't share the data on Binance. So everything comes from Bitfinex, and the ratio of the naked shorts is alarming, because, for instance, on Bitcoin, it's like 80%. So 80% of the shorts, they are edge. But on Monero, it's like 0.01%. So this is crazy.
That is interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely interesting stuff.
Uh,
Because we do know they do that with gold and silver. Like, that's a documented fact. And they don't
Yeah.
like gold and silver.
Yeah.
It's an inflation indicator. And when gold and silver goes up, that makes inflation look more than what they post it as, because they manipulate the CPI, they manipulate all the inflation statistics. And gold and silver have always been honest inflation measures, until JP Morgan got in control of the market and started dumping naked shorts on top of it, covering up how much inflation that there actually was, which was one of the reasons why there was that Reddit silver squeeze that happened back in January. People were like figuring this out, and they're like, we need to take down these banks. They have a huge short position. Let's buy physical silver and squeeze them. And it got up to like $30, $31. And then, the Empire Strike Back and, killed it. So we do know that that's a thing that's well documented. We know that a lot of people have been arrested at big banks for doing price manipulation in gold and silver. And so if there are certain financial instruments that threaten their plans, and certainly Monero would be one of those currencies which do that. I mean, I suspect to a certain degree, the reason Bitcoin and some other cryptos haven't been as heavily regulated or or attacked, I guess you could say, by the powers that be is because they don't want to spook people into Monero. Like they don't want to spook people into the Freedom Coin Covenant, where people can hide their balances. People won't be exposed to unrealized capital gains, which we've talked about, which would be wealth confiscation pretty much. And to know what everybody's doing with their money, to know how much money people have, that's a lot of information that you could use to have leverage over the population. And so I imagine Monero is the real threat to them. And by not going after big cryptos like Bitcoin, which show how much you have as a balance, show who you're transacting with, show, a lot about your financial life, they don't want to spook people out of that because that serves some goal of theirs, in my opinion. So I think there's some interesting speculation to go into that. Interesting stuff. So we talked about why Monero is the best cryptocurrency. We know that as a fact. We love Monero here. But I do want to get your comments as to maybe some other projects going on in what I like to call the Freedom Coin Covenant, the Freedom Coin sector with, Pirate Chain, Darrow, Haven. We had an interesting interview with someone from Haven. Looks like a pretty promising project. What are your thoughts on some of these other projects?
Well, for my honest vision about this, well, let's say that Monero, for me, Monero is not an altcoin anymore, and it's potentially the new Bitcoin. Right? I think that Monero is the new Bitcoin for the coming years. So, well, when it comes to Pirate Chain, I think if Monero is the new Bitcoin, I would say that Pirate Chain is the new Bitcoin Cash. So
I thought you were about to say it was the new Dogecoin. I was like, no, but
no,
yes,
I mean,
that'd be great. Good gains there.
The new Dogecoin is Monero. This is Monero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monero actually has some pretty good privacy specs. There's some guy who keeps commenting on my channel wanting me to give shout outs to Monero, and I think it's a joke, but at the same time, you look into it, it's got like
Yeah, it's a new
20-something
one.
ring signatures, and it's actually kind of private.
Yeah, it's a new one. It's a new one.
Yeah.
But yes, I think, well, when it comes to Pirate Chain, I'm not really supporter of this project. I hear some people say there was a pre-mine and all this. And at the end of the day, there is Monero, and why create a new cryptocurrency, because some people say, well, there was Bitcoin, why did you create Monero? Well, we created Monero because we need fungibility, and fungibility is something that needs to be on any currency, any cryptocurrency. So there was a huge need for this. But then if there is another coin that says, I do the same thing that Monero, but I'm more fast, or I'm more this or more that, it doesn't really matter because you don't have something really essential. Monero, it adds fungibility, privacy. So this is why I prefer Monero over Bitcoin, because this is huge. But now, since Monero does it perfectly, I don't see why I would go for another one. And at the end of the day, this is my vision. And honestly, what I believe is that some people maybe they are trying to get more gains. But what I would say is that, well, with Monero, if it goes where it has to go, you will have more than enough gains, And by trying to go to other projects and all of this, you just make it. It's like you create a kind of illusion, and then some people, when they discover privacy coins, they don't know where to go and all of this. But at the end of the day, I think it will be about Monero, the same way that now we see that Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, well, they become less and less important. And well, I truly think, but this is good because it also shows that Monero is maybe the next Bitcoin because yes, we have our Bitcoin Cash now.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I have my certain set of arguments as to why I think Pirate Chain is interesting, why different coins are interesting. I'd like to also get your thoughts on Haven and some other things like Darrow, because Darrow also does private smart contracts. Haven does private stable coins. I was looking to do a video on Concealed Network. Concealed Network does private banking where you can get interest payments and you can send private messages on the Concealed Network. So there are a lot of interesting things in the space, which I think diversify the capacities of private blockchains, which I think is cool. But in regards to Pirate Chain, people wonder why I like Pirate Chain. And yes, I'm not saying it's perfect. I have had some issues that I brought up with Captain Draith of Pirate Chain. who addressed some of my concerns. One of my concerns, though, continues to be the lack of tail emission. I believe that's something which makes Monero absolutely key, because one of my main concerns is that as you approach the final block to be included in the rewards, how does that not centralize mining? How does that not disincentivize people to mine Pirate Chain, right? I think you need a tail emission. And he said he wasn't opposed to tail emission. So maybe that's something which is coming for Pirate Chain. We don't really know, though. But one thing about, Pirate Chain, you had mentioned that, well, if something already works, why mess with other things, right? And, if you go out into society, you've got Burger King, you've got McDonald's, you've got Five Guys, and you've got different, stores or different shops which provide the same essential thing, which performs the same essential function, but it's just a little different. Maybe it's marketed a little bit different. Maybe, it fills some other niche that maybe isn't fulfilled by the other shop or something like this, or the other product. With Pirate Chain, this is what I find interesting about it. I think Pirate Chain markets privacy coins differently than Monero. There was some lady from Microsoft or Google out there, and she had done a poll. She's like, should I get into Pirate Chain or should I get into Darrow? And she didn't say anything about Monero. And so people brought this up to her. They're like, okay, so you're talking about Pirate Chain, you're talking about Darrow. Have you ever heard of Monero, like the real deal, like the real privacy coin that everybody has been into since 2014? Why are you not mentioning this? And she's like, oh, well, that's interesting. I just heard about Pirate Chain from a friend of mine or something like this. I forgot what she said. But when you have more coins out there, which do different marketing, which attract different populations into different markets, that brings people into the space. And when people are then interested in privacy coins, they'll say, what's the best one? And then they'll do research, and maybe they'll consider Monero to be the best one. Then they'll go into Monero. So I'm not one of these people who thinks that it's a zero-sum game. I don't think that, oh, well, you have Pirate Chain that's going to take market share and attention away from Monero. I think it could bring in more market participants who will then be curious about other projects in the space. They'll go to places like TradeOgre, which is one of the main places to get Pirate Chain. They'll look at other coins which are in that top 10 or top 20 or whatever, and they'll be like, what's going on with these? And that's the story with me. That's why I've gotten into some of these other weird cryptos, right? It's because I'm on these exchanges like TradeOgre. I see the competition. I see these other projects doing different privacy things. And I'm like, oh, cool. Let's check this out. And so I think you get into Monero by having other projects which entice different markets, and then they get into Monero with, that proximity or that closeness factor or something like this. Does that make sense? So I don't think that it's as competitive as much as it's complementary, actually. That's my position. I think that we could debate this all day. What do you think about that take, though?
Well, to be honest, I didn't thought about that argument. So I think, this is a point, and well, at some extent, yes, it brings more people. So, well, this is a point, this is a point. But I'm not sure, this is enough to, because, well, think. Some people say there is a pre-mine of maybe 90. I don't know, but I read somewhere on the internet that there was a pre-mine maybe 90% on Pirate Chain. So since it is a private cryptocurrency, so you cannot even know the amount of the pre-mine and what is happening, So when you launch a new token, I think the initial way of distributing the initial supply is extremely important. And the fact that there was potentially a huge pre-mine on Pirate Chain, one question I have is, what is then the intent of the creator of this token? And my second question is then, what does it mean for all the people that follow and go into this coin? But
I think that's an interesting take. I asked Drath about that because that's a concern that I receive a lot about Pirate Chain, that there's a 90% pre-mine. He says there was no pre-mine. It's just that a lot of the blocks were mined early on, and it could be that they were mined by the same people. Now, what's the difference between that and a pre-mine? That's up for speculation and interpretation. But here's why that doesn't bother me too much. You make a good point about what is the intent of the creators of Pirate Chain if they want to get a lot of the coins early and then dump it on other people. That is a good point. But I want to hear arguments with people who are antagonistic to Pirate Chain talking about the privacy, because zero snark technology is pretty good technology as far as I understand. Zero proof sets, that seems to work quite well for privacy. But here's my issue with the pre-mine argument. Let's say that there was a pre-mine and it's owned by a small number of hands. The argument then isn't that it's a bad privacy coin. The argument is that, hey, wait till they dump so you can get them for a cheaper price, right? It's not that, you know, it's a price prediction argument. It's not so much it's a bad privacy coin. It doesn't work as it's advertised. It's just the distribution of the coin makes it so that maybe you don't want to get in too early because you could be a bag holder, or maybe you'll have to hold the coin longer than you would otherwise want in order to get the gains that you're looking for, assuming that you're looking for gains. So that would be one argument against that. And then, of course, with any monetary system, you're going to have the 80-20 rule. You're going to have the Pareto principle kick in, where 80% of the wealth is held by 20% of the population. That seems to just be how the distribution of wealth is occurring in a free market economy and a free society. A lot of people provide, or a small number of people provide most of the wealth, and then you have a hierarchy which branches off from that. So the concentration of the coins isn't too big a deal to me. I think that over a certain long time span, that's going to distribute itself out in accordance with natural principles. But the pre-mine thing, he says there's no pre-mine. Even if it was mined early, that wouldn't be too big of a concern for me if the underlying privacy tech is working, if it's working as advertised. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, your points, you know, I think they are more interesting than the points I'm used to hear, you know. And well, I think, yes, these are good points. Now, again, for me, the fact that there is such a pre-mine, this is an issue. And even if on the long term you have a weak distribution and all of this, because I mean 90%, this is huge, you know. So yeah, but yeah, I mean we'll see how it happens, you know, and everyone has its point of view on this, you know, and yeah, if I have to be honest, I think the fact 90% it's extremely huge. And even if with the time you have redistribution, I mean, this person, who knows, you know, what happens, you know. And my main point is that about the fact that Pirate Chain, what it brings compared to Monero, I mean, Monero technology is already enough. It does what it is supposed to. You know, it's not like the booting program of the US government. Nobody was able to crack Monero. And I think Monero is extremely resilient. And well, even if there is a potential new technology, the fact that Monero is more than resilient and it does what it is supposed to do, I mean, for me, there would be an interest in Pirate Chain the moment there is a doubt about the capacity of Monero to resist its attacks and to be less private and all of this. Then I would say that we need the edge against that possibility. But right now, Monero does what it is supposed to do so well that personally, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know really. I'm not saying I know, and I'm just giving my point of view, you know. But your points, I respect it, you know, because yes, it's at least no, it's not like the points I'm used to hearing. Like your points, I mean, it requires more thoughts, you know. It's more sophisticated.
Right. Because I don't want to be a shill. I don't want to be that guy who's out here sailing the seven seas telling you to get into something that isn't going to be good for you, because I'm accountable for that, right? And so I have looked into this stuff a little bit. It looks like an interesting project. And another thing that I've been honest about is just I'm not a cryptographer. You know, I'm not, you know, scientifically literate as to how this stuff is developed. It's novel technology. And at the end of the day, a lot of this is experimental, right? And so when it comes to getting involved with one crypto, that opens you up to certain risks. And I'm not saying that Monero hasn't figured out its problems. There was a bug, though, a couple months ago, which seemed to have exposed the privacy of some people. Now, I'm not scientifically literate enough to understand what exactly happened with that bug on the code level or why it happened. You would anticipate that the people who are pretty wise to this stuff and pretty literate on this stuff would have been able to prevent that from happening, but nevertheless, you had that happen. And so, given that we're dealing with experimental novel technologies, it's also perhaps a decent idea to diversify your exposure to the space. So that's just another argument that I have. In case something happens with one particular crypto, maybe it's not a bad idea to have exposure to a backup. And I think that is just another good argument in regards to that case. But anyways, I'm trying to evangelize Pirate Chain. This is about Monero. But that's interesting. So Monero is number one for you. Are there any other crypto projects other than Monero and Etica that you're interested in?
Honestly, for me, it's I envision a future where there will be Monero first, Monero main blockchain for transactions. And Beacon has already an advantage when it comes to the use and the fact that it was the first token. But I think that over the long term, there is two possibilities. Monero is going to rise, but I don't know if it is going to potentially replace Bitcoin, But I truly think that even on the chart, when you look, you see that the Monero dominance is, I think it's the low, and in the in the world cryptocurrency market, Monero I think is going to rise much more than any other on the coming years, and that's my point of view. I think that in the future, Monero importance on the world will rise because people will see that they need what Monero offers. They need fungibility, they need privacy, because I think that the governments, as the inflation will arrive and hyperinflation will come, the people, they will be under the pressure of governments, and the governments will not have the choice but to implement very harsh measures, And at the end of the day, I think that having some Monero will protect a lot of people in the world, That's my point of view. Yeah,
I think that's a great point of view. And just to give a shout out to somebody who reached out to me, there is a current proposal. I think this was in the new bounty system that they have set up in the Monero ecosystem where for like small time projects that aren't on the level of being submitted for a CCS proposal, which is a community support something. I forgot what the acronym was, but that's where you can donate to help fund certain projects. There's something in the bounty system. Hold on, let me get water.
I mean, too, I would drink some water.
There's something in the bounty system where they are looking to fund an initiative that would translate how to do atomic swaps from Bitcoin into Monero in Chinese. And I think that would be really, really helpful to a lot of people who are going through some pretty harsh financial suppression and authoritarianism in China. Because they ban cryptos, they're rolling out the central bank digital currency over here. And so I would suspect that that's also going to be translated over to other parts of the world, as certain central banks and governments roll out their digital currency. I imagine the crackdown on free market cryptos is only going to increase. Now, we've commented on our channel, Monero can take the pressure because you can mine it with your computer, because you can get access to this stuff, hopefully here pretty soon through atomic swaps, which means you don't have to go through a centralized exchange. That makes it something which can be pretty robust in a time of financial authoritarianism and suppression and austerity. So I think that is something that is really good. And the more that we could spread the word about Monero, the more that we could build these networks, which allow people to transact peer-to-peer privately without any vampiric third parties, ranging from banks to governments to these blockchain forensics analytical companies, which we stumble upon a new one every other day, it seems, the better that we could have a chance to survive in the coming future.
Yes, actually, I'm looking forward to seeing how Monero is going to be adopted in China, since they have banned Bitcoin and all this. I'm looking forward to see how the situation evolves, because I think this is a perfect environment for Monero, and well, I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens too. And there is a community over there. It's kind of funny where they were skeptical a little bit about Monero because they thought it was a way for Americans to scam them. But it's growing because they're philosophically oriented over in China.
Sorry, I'm
And they're pretty
curious
smart.
to what extent it would be a way for Americans to do that.
Oh, I don't know. They're just skeptical of Americans. They're skeptical of people in the West.
Right.
And it makes sense given everything that's gone on with America over the last few years because of our financial empire, printing money, and all this stuff. But I think it's going to grow in China. I think it's going to grow. It's just a matter of how it is they are able to access the technologies that allow them to engage in this stuff. Do you have any thoughts on that, by the way? Because that's something I'm continuously curious about. I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and he was saying that you could use virtual private servers to get on the internet outside of the country in China. And then you could get access to something like Cake Wallet. You could get access to certain exchanges. And then you'd be able to get Monero and send it to yourself and have it in China or something like this. Another concern that I had is if you were to engage in atomic swaps and you were to be the person holding Monero, swapping that for somebody, swapping that for Bitcoin, and that person who had the Bitcoin was located in China, would that Bitcoin be tainted? Because technically it would be an illegal transaction in China because you're not allowed to transact cryptocurrency. You're not allowed to trade this stuff. And so would that Bitcoin be tainted? Would that be considered tainted by the exchanges, by FATF or OFAC? That's a concern that I have. What do you think about this?
Well, technically, I don't know how they would do it, but I would not necessarily look at atomic swaps, even if this is a great improvement for Monero, and I think that it will play a huge role in the future. But I would look at what happened in Nigeria, for instance, because when they banned Bitcoin over there, the people they found a solution to have a market, underground, and even in the price of Bitcoin on this market, it was higher, much higher than on the price on any other market. And people they manage, to exchange Bitcoin to buy and all of this. So I expect, that the Chinese they will find a solution and they will have the same thing but for Monero, because at this moment I think it might be too dangerous for them to hold Bitcoin because all of the properties of Bitcoin. So maybe they are going to look at Monero instead, and they will going to reproduce what Nigeria has produced when they ban the Bitcoin, and they will find a solution.
And that's another interesting note that you make. Nigeria just recently rolled out their central bank digital currency, I think. And so again, we see the pattern of cracking down on crypto before the rise of the central bank digital currency. And I think we're going to see that in the West. And again, the more people that we can get into this stuff, the better that we can grow the network, the more that we can grow the anonymity set, and the more that we could have a chance to transact with each other outside of the new 1984 system, which is coming, right? So we talk about that a lot, man. We talk about that a lot. I don't know how it is in France where you are, but in the United States, it looks like we could be going towards a situation where you're kicked out of the economy, basically, if you don't go along with the priest class, which has been anointed in the community, right? Given certain medical procedures and things like this. So I think we have a great opportunity in this current moment to bring people into these wonderful cryptocurrencies, which preserve your privacy, which give you an opportunity to transact with people without anybody knowing about it, no matter who they are, no matter what belief system they're part of, no matter what their background is. It's a totally free market system. And I think that provides a lot of people hope going into the future. And the more work that we can do right now to make that happen, the better, because we're living in a pretty critical time right now that I think makes Monero look incredibly attractive. And the more that we have people like Kevin Wad, and the more that we have people like Doug Tooman and others, the better. And the more of a chance that we have to create a truly beautiful free world. So, Kevin, you have any last comments as to what we've talked about today?
Well, I mean, again, I'm so glad not to meet you and to talk with you and all that. And yes, I mean, this is just crazy, you know. This is and yeah, maybe to conclude, you know, just because I saw at the moment, you know, on your videos, you talked about your faith in all of this, and I saw that some people, you know, they rebuke you or they said that it wasn't good and all of that, you know. But at the end of the day, I just want to say that I think that you come with a certain energy, and this is extremely important, you know, because we see that you're a good person, you know, and this is the main thing, you know. A lot of people say Monero is just for people on the darknet, people that, you know, are dangerous, or people that are bad and all of that. And we see you're exactly the contrary of this, you know. And at the end of the day, I just want to say, come as you are, you know, and that's the most important, you know. And yes, just keep your energy, just keep you who you are, and I think this is extremely good, and that's great, man. That's great.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that, actually, because you know, it is a little bit different. I guess we'll just put it that way. And I think it is good to introduce something that we value higher than money into the picture, because yes, we're about freedom, and gains are great. Not gonna lie, that intuition kicks in for me too. I think the gains are definitely in for Monero, but at the end of the day, if we're not doing it for something higher than these things, it's speculative as to whether or not we're going to succeed. So I do appreciate those comments for sure, and I do just want to tell everybody that Kevin here is a really good guy. I did go through some things about a week ago, given a particular wallet which had been compromised. I don't want to get into all that, but Kevin offered me a lot of help in regards to, you know, how it is I could protect myself against certain attacks like that. And you were there for me. You were there for me, and I really appreciate that. So it's just another example of the greatness of the Monero community, the good spirit which is here, and we're glad to have people like Kevin as part of the community. I think having people like Kevin, it definitely speaks large volumes about the quality of the character of the people in the community, and we want to keep that definitely essential to who we are, because we definitely want this to be a community of goodness, and we don't want to be associated with all the dark stuff going on the uber goober parts of the internet, right? Where, you know, you have people like John Oliver saying, oh, if you buy Bitcoin, that's like you going to Home Depot and buying a plastic tub the shape of the human body or something like this, right? We are people who value something higher than gains. We are people who value something higher than I guess degenerate things you could buy with this stuff. So
I have
this
to
a little
say,
bit, but yes.
yeah, I have to say, I completely, 1,000% agree with what you said, man. And you know what, regard to what happened, you know, I think this is what I mean. This is luck. I call it luck volatility. You know, it's like, you know. But at the end of the day, I think that since you're a very good person, I think at the end of the day, your karma will do that. You will have good things, you know, that are coming for you. You know, you don't know how good the things the universe has prepared for you. You know, and I mean, don't let this impact you. You know, because this is just luck volatility, and you know, at one moment your luck will skyrocket. Something unexpected will happen. You know, but yes, and keep your energy. The karma will come. You know, this is it, man. And also in my life, something I learned, you know, due to some events I had in my life, that when you say money is not the most important, I 1,000% agree with you, you know. And for me, the hierarchy, this one is, you have money, you know, but I mean, if you have money, potentially you have money. Above this, you have the freedom regarding the law, you know, being free, being able to move freely. I think this is more important than money. Above this, you have the health, you know, be healthy, you know, having a good health. This is above even the freedom of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my hierarchy, you know. And up until a few years, you know, I thought it was the most thing, you know, the most important health. because for me this is like the most important thing. But I mean, due to an event that happened in my life and all of this, I now I also think that there is something more important than health, and I think it's just to some extent the destiny, and so that's my vision of life, and for me money is at like the bottom of my values, and when you say money is not the most important on all of this, I 1000% agree with you. And when I see what the Bitcoin community has become to some extent, again, I'm not dogmatic. I'm not saying all Bitcoin maximalists are this way. But when I see, the momentum of certain people in the Bitcoin community, it's completely all about money, and again, they have lost their honesty with themselves and all this. And I think, yeah, we're completely aligned on this point, man. I'm 1000% agree with you.
100%. And I love that. I love that energy. And you have that dragon energy, man. You have that dragon energy. There's something deep within you, which is just a wellspring of goodness and just great energy and destiny, as you said. Destiny is an interesting concept. We believe in something like destiny for sure. If you walk with God, if you walk with the higher power, He has a plan for you as long as you continue along the path that He's set. And it's part of your will. There is a will element involved in that, and you have to make that choice. We do believe in free will and choice. I will ask you this one thing because I like this tangent that we've gone on because this is important. This is important stuff. What is sort of your concept of destiny? You had mentioned karma before. How does this play in to what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily. I mean, it's not necessarily something that is just personal. No, I think it's in general, it's a destiny of people. And well, when I say, for me, it's different. When I say karma, it means that I think that good people. And when I say good people, is that really, it's like even my intuition sometimes, tell me that yes, this person is innerly good, and good people, they bring the karma for them. The universe, it gives them positive things. At the end of the day, So that's what I was saying when I say karma. Now, when I say destiny, I mean, for instance, I don't know if you have seen. For me, there are some movies. This is crazy what I'm going to say, that the Disney movies. And I think
There we go.
yeah.
I love my
But
Mickey Mouse,
I
man.
think
100%.
I think on a lot of these movies, like they touch very profound things when it comes to philosophy and life experience. And for instance, what I mean is that if you take the destiny of Peter Pan, for instance, well, I would prefer, to risk my life rather than having a destiny that is, not aligned with what I'm supposed to do, or, I mean, I would fight with my life, to avoid the destiny of Peter Pan, for instance, or I would fight with my life and then my health to avoid the destiny of Pinocchio. This is what I mean, this is in this way. It's, yeah, I mean, you can be perfectly healthy, but if the life you live is not aligned with what you're proposed to do and your true destiny, then I think it's something that is more harmful than potentially risking your life and your health for your true destiny. That's what I mean.
I think those are great points. And I feel that in my own life doing this, because before then I was an accountant and things were good. If you could look on the outside, I was making decent coin. I was able to enjoy eating out, which I remember when I was like, 16, 17 years old, and I didn't have any money at all. And I'd be coasting down hills to save gas. Somebody would try to turn on the heat when it was winter. It's just like, hey, don't touch that. It's like, I can't afford that. But, I became an accountant and life became rather comfortable. But there was something inside me, which is just like, I could do more for my fellow man. It's good that I'm, stocking up a nest egg. It's good that, I am on my way to building a respectable career and all this stuff. I saw everything going on in the world, and it was just like, I got to get in the fight. I just can't watch all this stuff happening and not say anything and be cowed out of saying what needs to be said to save people from what seems to be this completely satanic overhaul of the entire world order. And so I like, even though my career is on hold, quote unquote, here, even though I've made certain sacrifices, I love waking up in the morning to talk about this stuff. I love getting this information out to people. And your concept of destiny, like, I totally feel like in that zone doing this stuff. And so that feels better to me than any time I was working my accounting gig. And it's just, I feel that we all do have a destiny. We all do have a compass for truth. We all have a conscience at the end of the day. And every single moment we make choices as to whether or not we're going to harm that conscience or nurture that conscience. And I think that's really important for us to recognize. You know, everything in life requires sacrifices. Everything in life has a cost benefit. But if you're guided by truth and you have certain red lines and you have certain standards, and you have an orientation towards goodness, I think that you'll make the right choices and you'll find it within your heart and within your spirit that you are so much stronger for those choices that you make, which are right, which could be difficult at first. But once you start down that path, you just feel like nothing can stop you. And you feel like exactly where you should be, which is just one of the best feelings in the world. Is that kind of how you feel when you talk about this stuff on your YouTube channel, when you do your work with Etica and these things?
Yeah, definitely. Completely. For me, fighting for freedom, giving fungibility to the world. People need fungibility because I think on the future, if they don't have it, it will impact the life of people. If you put the Bitcoin technology in the hand of very dangerous governments, for instance, they can do anything they want, and this is going to be extremely dangerous for people. So yes, definitely, this is like a mission as well. And with Etica, this is like another one, but very important as well. Maybe this is, yeah, I'm so willing to do what has to be done, and when Binance and all of these exchanges, they do what they do to Monero. Well, I'm going to laugh at that face, because I'm going to be so ruthless with them. I know that behind the scene they are ruthless with us, but they are not prepared. It's going to be insane, man.
The truth always comes out, man. The truth always comes out. The light always shines through.
That's it.
And people have pride. People have like this haughty arrogance now. And
that's it.
Pride always goeth before the fall. And it's the truest thing ever. So you got to stay humble. You got to stay in the right spots. And things turn out well, if you do that. Yeah. But Kevin, how do people find you? How do people find your work? It's been an honor having you on, brother. This has been an incredibly enjoyable conversation, and I've really learned a lot, and I hope that the people who tune in learn a lot. How can they get more of this great dragon energy?
Yeah, me too. And I want you to see also to have you on my channel, because I really like you, man. I really like you.
Likewise, bro. Likewise.
Yeah. So yeah, they can find my channel is Kevin Wad, and also when it comes to Etica Protocol, they can go on eticaprotocol.org. There is a white paper, everything explained, and this is the very beginning of the project. So if they like the idea, they can really join and help us to build this. We are, at the very, very beginning of this. And also there is Air Etica on Reddit. So it's Air Etica, and they can join, they can ask questions. I will be more than glad to answer the questions and all this. So yeah, so much things coming, and this is crazy.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. Well, we'd love to have you back on soon. I love talking to you, and the more that we can chat about current events, crazy things going on in the world, and the awesomeness and the beauty of Monero, the better. And a lot of people are looking forward to this talk, and I think that they're going to get great spirit from it. And that's one thing that we love, is just great goodness and spirit. So thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it, and I hope to talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, man.